Hello everyone, my name is Melianova. I'm a consultant at the World Bank, and in this video I'm going to present our working paper, which is called Returns to Education in the Russian Federation, Variation Across Regions. This presentation is organized in the following way. First, I will talk about why it is important to study regional returns to education in the Russian Federation. Then I will describe our data and methods that we utilized. Further, I will show our findings, the estimates of returns by regions for higher and vocational education, and also I will talk about whether different labor supply measures can explain regional variation in returns. And I will conclude mentioning some regional policy implications. So I'm going to head and start with some motivation. Why study regional returns to education in Russia? Actually, there are at least two reasons for that. The first reason is that Russian regions are rather diverse and there is a high level of heterogeneity between Russian regions. Therefore, there are regional differences in relative demand and supply for more educated labor, which, according to the supply-demand model of the labor market, can affect the magnitude of returns. And in fact, this has already been proven by past research. And the second reason is that regional perspective allows to adopt a more nuanced and targeted approach to the analysis of returns. And at the end of the day, it enables to develop region-specific policy implications. As for the data, in our research, we used the data that were collected by Eurostat in 2018. The actual database is called Statistical Survey of Population, Incomes and Participation in Social Programs. These data are notable for the fact that they are representative across all regions in Russia. The data are rather diverse. They contain trends in income, information on poverty variation among households with different socioeconomic status. They have a lot more variables like participation in social programs, their pension, health insurance, and many more. And in our research, we focused on individuals who are aged 25-64, who completed their education and have positive labor market experience and income that is greater than 0. As for the methods, like I said in the very beginning, Russian regions are rather diverse, so we have to properly treat that heterogeneity and account for that. One way to do that is to use random effects regression modeling, which is sometimes called as multi-level or hierarchical linear modeling. So in our research, we focused on the nested structure of the data where an individual I is nested within a region J, and that those individuals within one region are more homogeneous than across several regions. So here we have two levels. On the first level, there is a classical Manserian equation. So we have the logarithm of wages as our dependent variable, education experience squared, and gender as our independent variables. Education was measured as the highest attained level of education, that is university level, vocational level, and secondary level, which was our reference category. Experience was measured in years, gender was a dichotomous variable with females and males. So then, on the second level, we have our key parameters from the first level as dependent variables. That is our intercept and regression coefficient in front of the education variable, which is the estimate of our returns. So those equations on the second level have their own intercepts and disturbance terms, meaning that we allow them to vary across regions. And we also say that those parameters depend on regional characteristics denoted here by Z. Those characteristics are measured endogenously, and we use such characteristics as educational quantity and quality, which I'm going to elaborate on in a second. So here, labor supply measures our region-level characteristics. We leveraged two dimensions, quantity and quality. For the quantity, we used two variables, coverage by the population by higher education and coverage by vocational education. For the quality measure, we used such a variable which reflected standard deviations from the national mean of the EGS scores, a famous Russian school leaving examination. And this slide also presents top 5 and bottom 5 regions that are ranked according to these variables. So for example, for the coverage by higher education, Moscow and St. Petersburg are on top. For the vocational education, Respublika Altai and Respublika Kalmykia. For the quality measure, Moscow and Chuvashskaya Respublika. And let's proceed to the results that we obtained. So this slide shows the estimates of returns to higher and vocational education by regions and the respective 95% confidence intervals. The national average is also presented here. So as you can see from these graphs, there is a pronounced diversity in returns to education by regions. For example, for the top performing regions to higher education, uh, the returns are on the level of about 200%. And for the bottom performing regions, the average return level is somewhere around 30%. And the next question is, do labor supply measures explain regional variation in returns? Can they do that? So to answer to this question, we used models with cross-level interactions and tested for 3 variables here: coverage by vocational education, coverage by higher education, and EGS scores. And as you can see from these tables, only coverage by vocational education demonstrated a statistical significance. Here we have a t-value which is greater than 1.96, a critical value for the 95% confidence level. The rest of the variables did not demonstrate a statistical significance. So for the coverage by vocational education, we have positive coefficients for the interactions terms, meaning that the growth in the coverage by vocational education increase returns to education in Russia. In other words, coverage by vocational education has the potential to serve as an instrument of boosting payoffs from post-secondary education in Russia. And then a separate part in our paper is devoted to the development of policy implications. The federal government of the Russian Federation seeks to encourage regional development in Russia. And in 2019, the federal government identified a set of 10 regions that for whom focused economic development strategies will be prepared. And our research can potentially contribute to that effort by looking more closely at the human development aspect, in particular the rates of returns to education. So here we are. This is the ranking of the regions by returns to higher education. We divided the regions into 2 groups. The first group where returns to education are high, the second when they are medium or low. So the bold font here reflects those regions that are of particular focus. And as was expected, the majority of them fell in the category with medium or low returns. However, there are 3 regions here that have high returns. For example, Respublika Altai, Respublika Tver, and Kurganskaya Oblast. And then we moved on and added another dimension to our classification. This dimension reflects a comparison between the labor demand rank and a labor supply rank, so whether the former is greater or whether the latter is greater. The labor demand rank was measured by a share of regional income derived from industries that are relatively labor intensive, and labor supply rank was measured by the coverage by higher education and the EGS scores. So we ended up having 4 categories here, and the respective regions that fell in each category are listed on the slide. Finally, we developed some policy implications for those 4 categories of regions. For example, when returns to education are high and the demand rank is greater than the supply rank, those regions probably have to improve career guidance for high school graduates about choice of vocational school. They also have to encourage deeper teacher professional development in vocational and university education. When returns are high but supply rank is greater than the demand rank, those regions have to develop policy that promote entrepreneurship and encourage job creation, including innovation policies. When returns are medium or low and the demand rank is greater than the supply rank, regions need to develop policies that improve quality of professional colleges, increase investment in world skills to encourage more high ability students to choose vocational education. And when returns are medium or low and a supply rank is greater than the demand rank, those policies need, for example, to integrate industries to become part of global value chains, support specific industry clusters. They also need to integrate of specialized world skill centers with rest of the vocational education system. So this is all for this presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.